I want to take a moment and analyze a route map with you. This route map that we're looking at is applied to the router OSPF process. Now, it is attached to the redistribute command, and what are we redistributing? We're redistributing RIP. So it's always important to ground yourself and figure out, what am I truly dealing with here? Well, we're redistributing RIP routes into the OSPF process. And a route map is not necessary. Not at all. We don't need a route map. If we don't have a route map, then every single route is treated the exact same way as it's being redistributed into OSPF from RIP. So always remember that redistribution is an import process. So you're redistributing from one routing protocol into another routing protocol. So in this case, RIP into OSPF. But what I like to do is I like to really take a snapshot of what's going on. I want to look at my entire configuration from 35,000 feet, especially when it comes to route maps and redistribution. So we have a route map here called red is RIP. Now, I think what they meant was redistribution RIP. Redistribution RIP. But it comes out as red is RIP when I look at it. So I look at this and say, all right, so from way up above, 35,000 feet, what is involved in redistribution RIP route map? Well, I can see I have one here, I can see I have one here, and I can see I have one here. So there's 3 of them. What are these? These are sequences. And each sequence has a specific number associated with it. This is sequence 10, sequence 20, sequence 30. So 3 total sequences within this particular route map. And route maps are processed from top down. So this very first sequence of 10 is processed first, then 20, then 30. And as soon as there's a match, there's an immediate execution upon that particular sequence. And then it's not analyzed any further from that point on. So having that understanding of top-down processing, immediate execution upon a match, and then at the end, if there is no match at all, what is down here? I know I said there's only 3 sequences, but in reality, I think there's one more sequence here. Right in there. You can't see it. It's invisible. What is it? It's the implicit deny all sequence. You don't see it. Doesn't really exist. It's invisible, but you have to be aware of that, because if none of these match, if this doesn't match, this doesn't match, and this doesn't match, then the invisible implicit denial matches. And deny means what? Do you remember? Permit means to redistribute. Deny means do not redistribute. That's what that means. Do not redistribute if it's a deny. So the implicit denial will prevent redistribution from occurring for routes that don't match any of the sequences that you have specified. So let's start walking through this together, starting off with sequence number 10. Number 10, first of all, has a match condition right off the bat right here, match IP address. Now, IP address is referring to either an access control list or a prefix list. So you can specify with this match IP address command the different ACLs or prefix lists and the routes or addresses that you want this particular sequence to apply to. So you don't have to use prefix lists at all. You can use access control lists as they're showing here. But remember, the prefix list gives you the ability to even specify subnet masks. So if you can specify a subnet mask, then you have the ability to control that redistribution a little bit better. So when I examine this right here, I see 23 and 29. But does that mean 23 and 29? No. When you have multiple match conditions in the same match sequence, it's treated as an OR. So match the IP addresses specified in access control list 23 or 29. They don't have to match both, just one or the other, and it's classified as a match. However, let's say you had another match condition here. For example, match interface gigabit Ethernet 2/0. Well, if you had that match condition there, then since it's multiple match conditions within the same sequence, so multiple lines in the same sequence, then it's this and this. So this and this and this, and so on and so forth. So on the same line, it's OR. On multiple lines, it means AND. Now, 23 is down here. And this is stating that the addresses from 10100 through 1011255 are going to match this particular route map sequence. So if we have any routes that fall within this range, we don't care about subnet mask here, as you can see. If we did, we'd be using prefix lists. So if there's any route that has 10100 through 1012555 in its network fields, then so be it. They match this particular IP address. And then we can see 29 is listed down here. So with 29 down there, we have 172.16.1.0 through 172.16.1.255. So this first sequence matches either this range of addresses or this range of addresses. And if it happens to match that range of addresses, the routes, permit means to do what? Permit means to redistribute. Redistribute. So we'll redistribute those routes that fall within this range specified by the access control list. And when we do perform redistribution, we are going to set the metric during the redistribution process. Now, what's the default metric that is applied when routes are redistributed into OSPF? It's 20. Well, in this case, we're setting the metric to 500, so we're overriding the default value. If we didn't specify the metric here, then the default value would be used. In addition to that, we are setting a metric type to type 1. What's the default metric type when we're redistributing into OSPF? It's E2, so type 2. So we're modifying the metric type as well here to type 1. So essentially, this very first route map says any routes matching access control list 23 or 29 will be redistributed, and their metrics will be set to 500, and their metric type will be set to E1. That's what that is stating. If we look at entry number 2, right off the bat, we can see it's a deny. And deny means what? Deny means do not redistribute. Redistribute. Do not redistribute. So what are we not redistributing here? We are not going to redistribute any routes that match access list 37. So if we analyze access list 37 down at the bottom, we can see it's any route from 10.0.0.0 through 10.255.255.255. All right, stop right there. Take a pause. Take a breath. Doesn't that conflict with this one right here? Don't these two conflict? They do. They overlap each other. Is that going to be an issue? No, not in this case. It's not an issue because we have made sure our sequences are in the correct order. Because remember, we are dealing with top-down processing. So sequence number 10 is checked first, which means that the routes from 10.1.0.0 through 10.1.255.255 will be redistributed because of sequence number 10. And then everything else after that, that falls within the classful 10 network range from 10.0.0.0 through 10.255.255.255 would be not redistributed. So you see how that works? If this sequence here was up here, and let's say it was sequence 5, and came before the permit statement, then it would be a problem. Then we'd have an issue, and we'd be troubleshooting the issue that none of our routes are being redistributed. And it would all be because of this deny coming before the permit. So you have to be aware of this logic, the order of our route maps, making sure it is correctly ordered and implemented for top-down processing and the immediate execution upon a match. Examining sequence number 30 says what? It says match what? It says match everything. Since there's no match condition, match clause within that sequence, it means match all. So we're going to match all traffic in this case. And when we redistribute, because it says permit, we're going to set our metric to 500 and our metric type to 2. Or 5,000, pardon me, and then our metric type to 2. So every route that does not fall within sequence 10 or sequence 20 will be affected by sequence 30 because of the match all condition right here. I know it's not listed, but you have to realize it's there. Did we have to do type 2 here? No, we didn't, because that is the default for redistribution into OSPF. It will be type 2. So that wasn't necessary, but they put it in here anyways. But the metric, yeah, that's necessary if you want it to be 5,000 versus 20, which is the default.